All right, I'm here with Steve Mason, host of the Mason and Ireland show here in LA. How you doing, Steve?
I'm great. How are you?
Good. There's a lot of things going on here in LA land. You know, the Clippers lost last night, a tough loss off of a buzzer beater from Randy Foye. How'd you feel about that?
It's interesting. I was looking at some stuff today, and apparently whenever Blake Griffin scores 35 or more points, Clippers have problems. They're 2-6 in those games. I mean, I thought, you're going to lose games over the course of the season. Matt Barnes hit a really big shot before that set up that last shot. So I don't think there's any devastating effect from that loss. It's too bad. But, I mean, the Clippers are at the point now where they're just trying to get better night to night. They're certainly in every game. They're a legitimate title contender in the West. So I wouldn't read too much into losing that game last night. When Chris Paul comes back, the team will look a lot different than it does now.
With that being said, when do you think Chris Paul will be back? And, do the Clippers, at this point in time, do they still have enough, do you think, to beat a Portland or to beat a San Antonio this time around? Well,
Chris Paul will be back. He will be back in plenty of time for the postseason. There's no specific timetable for when he will return right now. But, Chris Paul transforms that team. He turns them into a whole, he's the captain. He's the most creative player probably in the game at the point guard position. So, when he does come back and when he's integrated back into what they're doing on the floor every night, I think the Clippers are a legitimate threat to go to the NBA Finals.
That sounds good. Now, let's talk about the other LA team.
Yep.
How do you feel about the Lakers at the moment? With all the Pau Gasol trade rumors, Kobe's still out. I know Blake and Steve Nash are back tonight. How do you feel about all that?
Well, I think that if I were the Lakers, and I've been pretty, maybe it's callous, but I've been pretty direct on this stuff. I think that the first thing that they should do, if I was in the front office, I would say, number one, Steve Nash, we're holding your retirement press conference tomorrow. There's no reason for Steve Nash to come back right now. I don't know what he's coming back to. Number two, we've got to flip Pau Gasol. If we can get an expiring Emeka Okafor who's not going to play for the rest of the year and a number one pick, even if it's the late first-round pick from Indiana, you just do it. You do it. You try to turn Pau into an asset. He's been a great Laker. Give him a chance to play an integral role in somebody else's playoff run.
Yeah, it makes sense to let Pau go off, right off into the sunset. Get a fresh start in somewhere like Phoenix. And, Steve Nash being around still, that doesn't really make any sense. I've heard words like nerve damage. I think that if Steve Nash does stay around, if he plays 4 more games, it means that the Lakers cannot use the medical exception and clear his $9+ million salary from the cap. So that's a huge net loss for the Lakers organization. If he does play 4 more games, they're able to at some point use the stretch provision on his contract, which means that they'll get $3 million on the books next year, $3 million on the books the following year, $3 million on the books the following year. Well, that $3 million next year is key. That's a veteran's minimum salary. That's one more player that the Lakers cannot afford to go out and get. So, I think at this point the Lakers should figure out a way to cut bait on Steve Nash. I don't know. Yeah, because I don't even I know he's under contract to play next year, but I don't even see him being able to finish this year.
No, he's played so little. There was a headline, Steve Nash, when will he return? And I'm like, when did he get here?
Yeah.
I don't even remember when he
never
started.
Here, and it's pretty sad.
You can't return if you never arrive.
Exactly.
So, I think it's time to move on from that. Mike D'Antoni should be the coach for the rest of the year. I think the team will naturally drift down the overall NBA standings, and I think they've got a chance to be one of the 3 lottery teams. If they get down to, they're not going to get as bad as Milwaukee, but if they were, for example, to get down to the number 2 spot, it gives them almost a 20% chance of getting the number 1 pick in the draft, and they'd be guaranteed at least one of the top 3 picks in the draft. So,
yeah, that seems like what they're aiming for, because from what I hear, the Pau Gasol deal is pretty much to get rid of his contract and draft picks as well.